Hello, and in this part 1 video we're going to look at the topic of maps. Do you often use maps? Thinking about it, I tend to use them more nowadays than I used to in the past. Previously you needed to use a paper-based one, which was not practical or portable, whereas now you can just use an app on your phone, such as Google Maps. Did anyone teach you how to use a map? Not that I can recall. I did study geography at school, but I don't actually remember lessons being about maps. Instead, they were about earthquakes and flooding and such like. However, I do know how to read a map. I could be self-taught, or maybe someone did teach me, and I've forgotten. Do you prefer paper maps or electronic ones? Without a doubt, electronic ones. Paper-based ones are either too detailed or not detailed enough, whereas with an electronic one, you can zoom in or out to have it the size you need. Electronic maps make life incredibly easy because all you need is a Wi-Fi connection and you have the map you need at your fingertips. Before I go through the language in these 3 questions, just to mention another piece of language that I didn't actually use but you may find useful for your answers to this topic. We talk about a sense of direction. So this is the ability to know which is the correct direction to go in. And if you're very good at doing this, you have a good sense of direction. If you are rubbish at this and always end up walking in the wrong direction, you have no sense of direction. So when you're talking about maps and saying, did anyone teach you how to use a map? You might say, no, nobody taught me, but I have a good sense of direction, so I'm able to work out from the map where I need to go. Or you might say something about maps and say, I'm not very good at reading maps and I have absolutely no sense of direction, so I rely on other people to direct me. So let's take a look at some of the language in these questions. There aren't many questions on maps because there's not an awful lot they can ask you about them, but it is one of the topics that's being used in IELTS at the moment. So thinking about it, when you're asked a question, it gives you a little bit of thinking time instead of saying, let me think, thinking about it. And then we've got, I tend to use them, which is like saying I usually use them more than I used to in the past. And we talk about paper-based maps. You can also talk about paper-based dictionaries as opposed to electronic ones. And in terms of electronic maps, they're more practical, they're portable, whereas the paper-based ones were not practical, not portable. Portable means that you can carry them. Did anyone teach you how to use a map? Not that I can recall. And this means I can't really remember, or not that I remember. So it's a useful phrase, not that I can recall. Now the grammar in this answer, you might think, well, that's quite strange. Why is she using that? Instead of saying I studied, you can use did plus the infinitive as a past, and it's used for emphasis, for stress. I did study geography at school. Maybe someone did teach me. And we use it in the English language when we're stressing something. And here in the present tense, I do know how to read a map. So some of these in your IELTS speaking might impress the IELTS examiner. And we've got what geography was all about when I was at school, earthquakes, flooding, so trying to pop in a bit of complex language, and such like. It's a bit like saying and so on. Self-taught, that's useful for talking about skills. If you're self-taught, you taught yourself. Now, starting my answer without a doubt to make it stronger instead of just saying I prefer electronic ones. Detailed, this means they have a lot of information. And I'm making a comparison, so it's very useful to use whereas. Zoom in, zoom out, very good phrasal verbs. Zoom in, you make it bigger. Zoom out, you make it smaller. Remember to use words like incredibly, extremely, instead of using very when we're using them with adjectives. And you have the map you need at your fingertips. If something is at your fingertips, it means it's there, it's easy to use, it's making life simple for you, it's there in front of you. Now, like I said, there are not many questions on maps in IELTS speaking, and it is tricky to get lots of complex language in these part 1 questions, but remember the IELTS examiner is making decisions from the moment you start speaking, so it's useful to know some phrases, like to have a good sense of direction or to have no sense of direction. Thank you for watching.